I would like to ask everyone to take a deep breath and hold it until I move on to the next slide. I promise it will be worth it. Humans can live several days without drinking any water, but only several minutes without breathing any oxygen. Breathing is essential for life. However, for patients with epilepsy, they are at a higher risk of dying due to cardiorespiratory arrest. You may breathe now. Epilepsy is a disease affecting the brain in which neurons have periods of increased activity called epileptic seizures. And sometimes these seizures can affect this part of the brain called the brainstem, and then stop breathing and the heartbeat. That causes a cardiorespiratory arrest and death. This is called sudden unexpected death in epilepsy, or SUDEP by its acronym, and it affects 3,000 Americans every year. What makes it even more scary is that currently there is no way to predict when it's going to happen or to avoid it unless you're present in the room when it's happening and then give immediate CPR. SUDEP generally starts with an apnea, and because of that, the lab where I'm working started being interested in how seizures affect breathing. But we have a problem, which is that we don't have a lot of information on that. We know that the breathing networks are on the brainstem, and which is this area here, and they are comprised by different groups of neurons. But every element of the network could be a suspect of causing SUDEP. It is like a game of Clue, in which if we imagine the different groups of neurons as different characters, we could wonder whether it's the man in green, or these neurons here that could be causing the death, or the woman in red. However, we have one clue that we can use. The hypercapnic ventilatory response, which is a response that we all have when there is less oxygen available in the environment or when we stop breathing for a little moment. The oxygen is reduced in our blood and CO2 increases, and therefore when we are able to breathe again, we breathe more deeply and more continuously, as it may have happened to you when I asked you all to stop breathing for a moment. This is a very good clue, because there's only one group of neurons that is responsible of this response, which are the neurons in the retrotrapezoid nucleus, or in this case, it would be the guy in green. Now we have our suspect. What could be their motive? There are many pathways in and out of the cell that control neuronal function, and mostly they are sodium and potassium channels. But we know that mutations in the voltage-activated sodium channel type 1.6 or NaV 1.6 can cause SUDEP both in epileptic patients and in mice that have mutations that we cause on this gene, and therefore they have seizures and they also can die of SUDEP. For my work, I am studying these mice that have this type of mutation, and I put them on this chamber and include increasing concentrations of CO2 to see how their hypercapnic ventilatory response is acting. I also perform neurological recordings of the neurons on the retrotrapezoid nucleus, and doing all of these experiments, we try to get the conclusion that our hypothesis is actually true, and these mutations are indeed affecting these cells, and these cells are the responsible for causing SUDEP. Otherwise said that it is the guy in green that was actually the assassin. To conclude, obviously research is more difficult than a simple murder mystery, and we know that even when the research is done, we will only have one piece of the whole puzzle. We also know that, for example, serotonin or adrenaline can prevent SUDEP, so we are also interested in looking for collaborators that can help us study that. And if you are interested in doing a PhD or a postdoc on this or a similar topic, know that we are hiring, so you could join our lab and help us study these topics. And finally, all together, we will be able to completely avoid SUDEP one day. Thank you.